Hi there. I'm going to give you some quick tips on how to design a vase of flowers. First thing we're going to start with is a clean vase and fill it with some tap water. What we want to do is add our tap water almost to the top, but if you fill it right to the top as you start to put stems in, it's going to displace the water. So leave yourself an inch and a half of empty space at the top. You can add more water later. This vase here is 6 inches tall, 3 inches wide, and holds about 1.5 pints of water. That's important because we're going to fortify our water with a flower food that will also help to inhibit bacterial growth. 1 packet is good for 1 pint of water, so we're going to add in 1 packet and a little bit more out of another packet and stir it up. The warmer the water, the quicker it dissolves. The colder the water, the slower it dissolves. When we start adding in our flowers, we're going to first start with some greens. I like to use a variety of greens. They add both texture and also help to create a grid for you to stick your flowers in so they don't flop all over the place. You want to be sure that you remove any foliage that will be in the water itself and cut your stems so that they just about hit the bottom of the vase. Make a ring right around the rim. We can use a couple of different kinds. That was lemon leaf. Give it some seeded eucalyptus, removing the leaves that'll be below the line. And then last, I'm going to give it a little bit of tree fern, the fluffy fern. It just does a different texture. And just to give it some stability when I start to put my flowers in. Alright, so a quick little collar around the rim and then fill in on your middle so you've got a nice rounded shape of different mixed greens. When we start adding flowers, I like to add the bigger flowers first because you want to leave space for them, and then work down to the smaller size flowers. This is stock. Similar flower size might be hyacinth or the Gerber daisy, something like that. Bigger flowers should not be standing straight up at the top. They are heavier. They should be down towards the bottom rather than at the top. Give yourself a cut. Peel off any foliage that's going to be below the water line. And add your flowers. These are heavier, so I've added them more down towards the bottom. Well, this is going to be a round arrangement anyway. You notice I put them opposite each other on each side of the arrangement. Don't worry about did I have to use an odd number. That's a myth. I've used 2 of these. If you would use 3, you'd make them at the points of a triangle in the top of your arrangement. If you use 4, they'd be at the points of a square. So they're symmetrical and spaced evenly around your arrangement. Next, I'm going to use iris because as that opens, that's going to also be a larger flower. And I'm just going to place those right opposite of the stalk or the hyacinth or whatever the first flower was that you put in. Be careful not to cut your stems too short. What happens if you cut them too short, as the water level drops in your arrangement over time, they'll be sticking out of water and you'll lose them faster. Next, I have some tulips. I'm going to cut my tulips. And I'm going to start my tulips up at the top as high as I want to make my arrangement and go right out the top. They are a smaller flower, so they can come right out the top. But again, I want to place them. I've got 6 tulips, I think. So I'll go 2 out the top. Not exactly the same height. And then I'll space them kind of in between where I put my iris and my stalk. Tulips will grow, so you don't have to have them too high because they will grow as the arrangement ages and stretch out of the water. You want to make sure you have flowers that are up on what we call the upper deck, the lower deck here, right at the collar, and then also fill in the middle. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 that I've placed, staggering them between the iris and the stalk. If you had another flower, if you're going to use some daffodils, disperse them, placing them in between your tulips, and so on and so forth. Our last step is going to be an accent flower. I've got baby's breath. And that's just going to fill in between the spaces of all your other flowers that you've just put in. Tucked in, it shouldn't be, the flowers should stand out above the greens, but the accent flower should be below the flowers. So what stands out most is going to be your main flowers, your tulips, your iris, your daffodils, your Gerber, whatever you're using. So make sure you get right down on the collar of the vase so that you don't have big empty spots down there. And remember, these flowers are still going to open. And just fill in all around with your accent flower. Last thing, if you want to add ribbon, I've got ribbon that's about an arm's length long that I've cut. And I can go, on the mason jar, you can go right around the lip of the vase and give yourself a nice bow. Let it hang, cut it nice and long so that it hangs right down onto the table and flows down on the table. That'll just finish off the lower level of your arrangement, and you've got your arrangement. Better to cut too long and have to recut and put them back in than to cut too short, because once you've cut too short, you can't reuse it again. So cut them long and cut them multiple times if you need to.